Mark, I love you, man. But we can't look over each other's shoulders anymore. It just can't happen. How do I start this thing off? It's time for the Church of the Living God to have a breakthrough.
All right.
When I mean the Church of the Living God, I'm talking about the Corbin Church and the Barberville Church especially.
Amen.
It's time for a breakthrough. But before we can have that breakthrough, we got to recognize that there's a God that has to break forth. So we've got to let him break forth so we can have our breakthrough.
All right.
And that's why I called out Brother Mark. Joshua chapter 2 says, and I'm not exactly going to read it, I'm just going to paraphrase, but if you want to turn there. Joshua has 2 spies. He sends them over into the promised land. He sends them over into Jericho. They come across a prostitute, a harlot. She lets them in. She hides them on the roof. She keeps them from harm. She sends them on their way. She's given a commandment. Things happen. She gets her victory. Later on in chapter 6 of Joshua, we find the children of Israel marching around the walls of Jericho. They march around once each day. On the 7th day, they march around 7 times without speaking, without talking. Then they shout out with that voice of triumph, the walls fell flat. Now, what we don't understand, or what we may understand, is that Rahab, or Rahab, however you want to say it, her house was built into that wall. She was right on the outside. So when them walls fell flat, she was right there. When I examine, I've had this message for 2 months, and I could not believe some of the things that was said tonight. I kept crawling down in my seat because I knew that God had something to say, and I didn't even know if I need to say it because it was already said. But God is going to do what he does, no matter if I get up here or not. When the wall was falling down flat, she had access to many things. So when I examined this, I realized 3 things about Rahab. You all can sit down. I'm sorry. When we look at her life, there are 3 things that I noticed that aren't written, but it seems like it's there. And I'm not trying to make doctrine. I'm just trying to say what could possibly happen. But I like to put myself in the lives of these Bible characters and think of my situation as how they dealt with it with their situation. Before she could invite 2 Israelites, spies, into her house, she had to have heard from God. She had to be able to recognize who God is, the God of the Hebrews. She had to know that she had to listen to the man of God, because when these 2 spies come into her house, she listened and she obeyed what they said. We have got to listen to the man of God. We have got to listen, because if we don't do exactly what we're supposed to do and what we're told to do, we're not going to get our victory. The second thing I noticed, she was commanded to put a red cord through her window to signify that she was the one that was to be saved. Now, I'd imagine the rest of the people of Jericho walking by her window and seeing that red cord. They thought she was strange. They thought she was weird because she had this. People out there don't understand why we dress the way we dress or why we do the things we do. They think we're weird. Some think we're in a cult. But the people in her household and the spies knew exactly what that cord meant. When I look at each and every person here, I know why you do what you do. You may not understand it. She didn't understand it. But she did it, and we do it. Number 3, this is the most important part. When the walls fell, she had access to the outside world. Once the children of Israel took over Jericho, she had to rebuild her wall. But she had a foundation for her, because the walls didn't fall over, they fell flat. When she walked out to that wall to go up to the outside that was there before and it's not there now, she had a foundation to stand on. So the whole point of this message is we have to let down our walls so we can build our foundation. Because when we let down these walls of fear, and I heard all these things, and I was just floored because everybody sees it. We all see it. We all see what each other's going through. But yet we're not grabbing a hold of it and actually applying it to our lives. Us guys, we've got to let go of this macho facade and just break down at the altar. Let down your walls of being that big tough man and just let it go. And I know we got to step up and be the man sometimes. And there's just walls of fear and walls of doubt and walls of shame because of our past. And I'm glad that God doesn't hold my past against me. Because if you all knew what I have been through before, I was not raised in this. If you knew what I had been through before, you probably wouldn't let me do the things I do. But I'm not like that anymore. All right. Let's let down our walls. I've got to let down my walls. I know my time's almost up. But once we let down our walls, let's start building our foundation. We'll build our wall together. We'll build it up strong. We'll keep our family inside. We'll keep our cord. That way the world may see us as strange, but we know us as redeemed. Let's do it together as one mind and one accord.